Paul, I always finish with a few questions I want to ask you.
Yeah.
If I could give you a special phone and you could ring up the 20-year-old Paul Mckenna and give that young man a bit of advice, maybe are you pirate radioing at this point? What would you tell him based on everything you know now?
Right, it's a great question. And a few years ago, Brian, I was in years ago, back in it was 1990, I think it was. I went to Miami with a friend of mine. We hired a sports car and we stayed in this little hotel. It was nice right there on South Beach. And I thought, great. And a couple of years ago, I went with my wife and I walked down South Beach and I said, I was standing right there. I'm like 25 years ago, right? Or something like that. And what would I say to me of then? And the first thing is I would say, it all turns out okay. Now, that doesn't mean there ain't going to be some big challenges. You'll wonder at times, am I going to be able to make it, right? I mean, really, am I going to be able to ever get through this? It will be so awful. And yet you will. And as a result, you'll become stronger and wiser. Now, I'm not one of those people who thinks, if it doesn't kill you, it makes you stronger, because no, it can weaken you, there's no doubt. But I would say, I'd tell that younger me, be kinder to yourself. I mean, I've done this process where I've gone into the future and I looked from the end of my life, looked back and gone, what do I wish I'd done more of and what do I wish I'd done less of? And I wish I'd loved more, laughed more, been less competitive with everyone else and actually enjoyed the ride rather than waiting for the next. And so, when people, there was a study done a few years ago, people in old people's homes, and they were asked, what do you wish you'd done more of and less of? Basically, the less of, they all said worried less. And I think, I think I'd say to me, don't worry, it all turns out okay. You're actually, even though you don't know it, you're not a bad guy. You're a good guy overall. That doesn't mean everything you do is good, because occasionally you might do something bad, Paul. But overall, you come, with a good intent.
What was he like, 20-year-old Paul?
Oh, well, first of all, he wanted to change the world, and thought I could. I was invincible, I was probably reckless, I was highly creative, very ambitious, at times probably a bit of a maniac, but I was also fascinated by everything, Also quite kind of in awe of my elders, the people who were the big broadcasters of the time. I wondered how I would ever be as good. In fact, it's very interesting. A couple of years ago, I said to Richard Bandler, I said, Matt, no matter how good I get, it annoys me that I'll never be quite as good as you. And he said to me, he goes, but you don't want to be me, Paul. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, you want to be the best version of you. I went, he's so clever, isn't it? In that single sentence, he reframed it. And I went, that's it. I want to be the best version of me. So, I try and be now the best husband I can be to my wife. I try and be, the best when I do an event like tomorrow. If there's hundreds of people have come and I'm a good employee, I'm going to try as hard as I can to get them into a great place and make their lives good. And so, that younger me was probably a bit more selfish, was definitely more selfish, probably a bit more nervous and paranoid, not as confident as I am now. And probably not a little bit self-hating from all the Catholicism, from the sort of all the endless guilt stuff. And so I think that was the negative. On the positive, I was out to change the world.
Yeah, in a big way.
Yeah.
Second part of that question is best advice you've ever received. Could have come from your mother, your father, or a mentor along the way, or Richard, or Simon, but something that sticks with you.
Do you know, I've asked many people this question, and I mean, if I can cheat a bit and give you some of the answers other people have given me, and I'll give you mine. I mean, David Geffen, I asked him that question, and he said, know when to leave the party, right? And I said, what do you mean by that? He went, well, I could have stayed with the Eagles. And they deconstructed everything. But he realized it had peaked. Yeah. Right. And I know that Simon Cowell said to me, well, take your time over things. A lot of people think I got to do it tomorrow, get rich quick and all that. Take your time and enjoy it, right? Nicholas Holt said to me, even though he's a young guy, he's a smart guy. He said somebody gave him this piece of advice last year. It was on a set. They'd just lost their partner of 40 years. And this lady said, love and be loved, which I think is really nice. I like the Dalai Lama's kindness is my religion. I like Gandhi's my life is my message, or be the change you want to see in the world. I'd say you get more of what you focus on. So my friend Mikey Neal, who's a life coach, says if you just go and tell a lamppost your plans every day, they're more likely to happen. And so you have to think about what could go wrong so you can be prepared for it and avoid it. But I tend to focus on what it is I want. I move towards success rather than away from failure, I mentioned earlier. And I think what you practice, you get good at. And so I try every day to enjoy it, the specialness and the uniqueness of it, because I know that one day it'll end, and and I'm loving life so much. I'm one of those people who doesn't like the party to end really, but I've gotten used to knowing when to leave now.
Right. Last part of that is to the 20-year-old that's listening to us right now or watching to us. What advice do you give to them?
Well, it would be all of that, and it would be, and actually, I'd go over and I'd say, hi, I'm from the future. I want to tell you that it all works out okay. And that many of the things, the doubts you have, or any of the lack of self-worth, or anything that you don't like about yourself, et cetera, it gets sorted out pretty much. And that doesn't mean that that you never have any problems ever again. But you're in for a really exciting ride. You've got no idea how amazing it's going to be. I mean, right now you want to be a disc jockey. You've got no idea. You're going to be world famous. You're going to travel the world. You're going to meet interesting people. You're going to have some of the most amazing experiences. You're going to enjoy life to the full. You're going to have tough times as well, but you're going to come through them, and you're going to make a positive contribution to the world. And that is a life worth living. That's what I would say to the younger me.
And they should, and anybody at that age should just be excited that they could have a potential future like that.
Yeah, and then I'd also make sure I put it in my own head in a hypnotic way.
Right. And with all that excitement as well. So
yeah, absolutely, yes.
Yeah.